The wine in my mouth soured instantly, like it had turned to straight vinegar, the moment Silas Vance spoke. His voice sliced clean through the polite clink of crystal and silverware that filled the dining room. He didn't raise it. He didn't need to. It was deep, controlled, and polished in a way that made it cruel, built to travel across that long mahogany table and land right in my chest. "Let's be realistic, son," Silas said, lazily swirling his glass, not bothering to look in my direction. "We don't bring strays into the house. We might leave scraps out back, sure. But we don't invite them to sit at the table. That kind of thing muddles the bloodline." The air seemed to disappear. Around us sat 20 of the most powerful people money could buy: senators, oil barons, heirs to fortunes older than the country itself. Every one of them froze mid-motion. Forks hung halfway to mouths. Conversations died in place. Their eyes bounced back and forth between Silas Vance, billionaire kingmaker, and me, the person in the off-the-rack dress seated beside his golden boy's child. I felt all the warmth drain out of my face. My hands pulled inward, trembling beneath the tablecloth like they were trying to hide. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms, using the sting to keep myself anchored in my body. "Dad," Ethan whispered, his face drained of color. "Please, don't." "Don't what?" Silas finally turned his attention toward me. His eyes were cold and flat, like ice stretched over deep water. "Don't say what everyone's thinking. You're infatuated, Ethan. That happens. Young men have their little flings with rough-edged women. It's educational. Builds character." He leaned back slightly. "But you don't bring the help to a gala dinner. You don't pretend that someone raised on food stamps belongs in a room where the silverware costs more than her entire education." A thin smile crept across his face, sharp and unsettling. "Honestly, it's cruel to her. Look at her. She's terrified. She knows she doesn't belong. She knows she's a fraud." "My name is Kira Thorne. I'm 34 years old. I am not a stray. I built one of the most aggressive biotech companies in Silicon Valley from the ground up. But in that Newport mansion, surrounded by old money and sharper knives, none of that mattered. In that moment, I was just a kid from the projects who dared to date too close to the Vance Energy empire." Slowly, carefully, I unhooked my napkin from my lap. I laid it on the table and smoothed the linen flat, taking my time. The silence pressed in so hard it felt like it was squeezing my ears. "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Vance," I said evenly. My voice stayed calm, never hinting at the storm tearing through my chest. "And thank you for the honesty. It's not often you meet someone so eager to show everyone exactly how small they are." A collective gasp rippled around the table, like someone had knocked the wind out of the room. Silas blinked. His smug expression cracked for half a second before snapping back into pure rage. "Excuse me," he snarled. "I said thank you," I replied, standing up. "For the lesson." Then I turned and walked away. I didn't rush. I didn't look back. I moved with the steady pace of someone who'd been burned before, and learned they don't ignite anymore. I passed priceless artwork lining the hall, a Renoir staring back at me in judgmental silence. The staff stood frozen, eyes down. Security watched but didn't interfere. Outside, I was nearly to my Honda Accord, parked awkwardly between a Ferrari and a Maybach, when I heard footsteps crunching fast on gravel. "Kira, wait." Ethan grabbed my arm. He was breathless, his bow tie crooked, tears streaking down his face. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I swear I didn't know. I had no idea he'd be that vicious." I looked at him, really looked. I loved him. I always had. But standing there in the cold Atlantic air, all I saw was fear. "He called me a stray," I said quietly. "He was drunk," Ethan rushed out. "He's stressed about the merger. I'll talk to him. I'll make him fix this." "You can't fix rot that deep," I said, gently pulling my arm free. "He didn't just insult me. He erased me." "I froze," Ethan said desperately. "I was in shock. I was in hell," I corrected. "There's a difference." I opened my car door. "I'm going home. Don't follow me. I need space." "Don't let him win," Ethan pleaded. "Don't let him break us." I glanced back at the mansion towering behind him, a monument to wealth and ego. "He can't break what he doesn't own. Go back inside." Your father's probably waiting for you to finish dessert. I drove away, watching the Vance estate shrink in my mirror until it became nothing but scattered lights against the black ocean. My hands started shaking once the adrenaline crashed, hitting me hard. My phone rang. It was my assistant, Sarah. The time read 9:30 p.m. On a Saturday. Kira, she said tightly. I know you're at the dinner, but the legal team just emailed. Vance Energy wants to move the signing up to Monday morning. They're pushing hard. I pulled onto the shoulder of the highway and stared out at the dark, restless water. Vance Energy, the industry dinosaur. Cash poor, desperate, scrambling to pivot into renewables and biotech. They needed a miracle. They needed Nexus Dynamics. They needed my company. Silas Vance knew Nexus was the prize. He knew the numbers. He knew the technology would change everything. What he didn't know, because I'd hidden behind shell companies and a proxy CEO, was that the stray he humiliated was the founder and majority shareholder of the company he was begging to merge with. Sarah, I said calmly into the phone. Yes, Miss Thorne. Kill it. There was a pause. I'm sorry, I think the signal. Did you say kill the merger? Terminate the letter of intent. Pull the financing. Notify the SEC that we're withdrawing immediately. But the deal is worth $4 billion. The termination fee alone. I don't care. Cut the check. And send the notice directly to Silas Vance's personal email. List incompatible values and toxic leadership as the reason. He's going to panic, Sarah whispered. This deal was their lifeline. I know, I said. Draft a press release for Monday morning. And schedule a meeting with Solaris. If Vance won't sell to me, I'll back the company that buries them. Understood, she replied, slipping back into full professional mode. Anything else? Yes, I said. Get me a coffee. It's going to be a long night. I didn't sleep. I sat on the balcony of my penthouse, city lights glowing below, drinking bad coffee and waiting. The fallout came faster than I expected. At 7 a.m., my phone exploded with missed calls from Ethan. My phone was stacked with missed calls, lawyers, advisors, and 6 from a number I recognized immediately from the due diligence files. Silas Vance. At 8:30 that morning, my intercom buzzed. Miss Thorne, Sarah said, trying and failing to sound neutral. There's a man in the lobby demanding to see you. He's yelling at security. Says it's urgent. I buttoned my silk blouse and smiled faintly. Let me guess. Expensive suit, red in the face, looks like he's one bad breath away from a heart attack. That would be him, she said. He says he needs to speak with the owner of Nexus. Send him up, I replied. But put him in the glass conference room, the one where the morning sun hits you straight in the eyes, and let him wait for 20 minutes. You're awful, Sarah said, and I could hear the grin in her voice. I'm a stray, I said. We weren't raised with manners. Half an hour later, I walked down the hall toward the conference room. No notebook, no legal team, no entourage, just me. Silas Vance was pacing like a trapped animal when I opened the door. He looked worse than the night before, older, looser, unraveling. His tie hung undone, his eyes were bloodshot, and his confidence was gone. He spun around when he saw me. You? He sneered. What are you doing here? Did you follow me? I'm waiting for the CEO, Kira. Get out. I don't have time for your childish drama. I didn't answer. I walked past him, took the seat at the head of the table, and settled into the leather executive chair. I crossed my legs and gave the chair a small, deliberate swivel. Please, I said calmly. Have a seat, Silas. He froze. His eyes flicked from me to the empty chairs, then back again. Understanding crept up his face slowly, like something unpleasant dawning on him all at once. He turned and stared at the logo on the wall behind me, the Nexus Helix, then looked back at the woman he'd dismissed the night before. No, he whispered. That's not possible. Isn't it? I said. You ran the background checks, didn't you? You saw the foster homes, the community college, the waitressing jobs. I leaned forward, resting my arms on the mahogany table, a table that cost more than his car. You saw where I came from, I continued. What you missed was where I went. I held his gaze. You missed the patents. You missed the IPO. You missed the fact that the trash you insulted last night owns the oxygen your company needs to survive. Silas collapsed into the chair across from me. All the bluster drained out of him, leaving something small and brittle behind. Kira, he stammered. Miss Thorne. There's been a misunderstanding. Was it a misunderstanding when you called me a stray? I asked evenly. Was it a misunderstanding when you said I polluted your lineage? I was drunk, he said desperately. It was a private dinner. It had nothing to do with business. It had everything to do with business, I snapped. My business is built on finding value where people like you see nothing. Yours is built on exclusion, on pedigree, on names instead of ideas. I leaned back. I don't partner with dinosaurs, Silas. I put them in the ground. You can't do this, he said, sweat forming on his forehead. Without the deal, our stock tanks by noon. We'll be insolvent in 6 months. Think about the employees. Think about Ethan. I am thinking about Ethan, I said quietly. He deserves a father who isn't a bigot, and a future that isn't chained to a sinking ship. My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at it. That's Solaris, I said. They're thrilled about our acquisition offer. They're calling to finalize terms. Silas went pale. He looked like he might be sick. Please, he said. Name your price. We'll renegotiate. I'll give you a board seat. I don't want a seat, I cut in. I want the table. I stood up. Here's the deal. Nexus acquires Vance Energy. Not a merger. An acquisition. We buy you out for pennies on the dollar and keep the company alive. I paused. There's one condition. Anything, he breathed. You resign. Immediately. No golden parachute. No consulting contract. You walk away and never set foot in the building again. His mouth opened then closed. You can't be serious. I built that company. And last night, I said calmly, you destroyed it. I walked toward the door. You have 1 hour to decide. After that, I sign with Solaris and your stock hits zero. I stopped, turned back once. Oh, and Silas? Use the service elevator on your way out. We try to keep the lobby clear for people who actually belong here. I left him there, a king trapped in a glass box watching his empire burn. Back in my office, Ethan was waiting. He sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. Sarah had let him in. He looked up when I entered, eyes red and exhausted. I heard, he said hoarsely. The news is already leaking. The stock's in free fall. I gave him a choice, I said, leaning against my desk. I know. Ethan stood and walked toward me, stopping just short. He called me this morning. Screamed at me. Told me to fix you. He took a breath. And I told him he was right about one thing. I didn't deserve you, just not for the reasons he thought. He reached out and took my hand. I resigned this morning, he said. Before the crash. I don't want his money. I don't want the legacy if it means watching him treat people like dirt. I searched his face for the fear I'd seen the night before. It was gone. In its place was something steadier. Still scared but resolved. You walked away from billions? I asked. I walked away from a bully, he said. I'd rather be a stray with you than a prince with him. I smiled. For the first time in a full day, the tight knot in my chest finally loosened. Well, I said, pulling him close, the good news is I'm hiring. And I hear we're acquiring a large energy company that desperately needs non-toxic leadership. By noon, Silas Vance had resigned. By mid-afternoon, the acquisition was public. By evening, the world knew the stray had eaten the wolf. I never spoke to Silas again. I didn't need to. The last image I have of him is through the glass wall of my conference room, signing his resignation with a shaking hand, finally realizing that in the new world, what matters isn't who your father was, but what you bring to the table. People say revenge is best served cold. I disagree. Revenge is a business transaction. And business, as it turns out, is booming.